The 1980s gave birth to some of the craziest and most out-of-this-world cars that the public had ever seen, from the Lamborghini Countach all the way to the DeLorean. This was a time of automotive styling overload. And by the early 1980s, the new redesigned Foxbody Mustang burst onto the scene, selling over 300,000 cars in its first year of production. And while the Foxbody Mustang featured a new exciting design language, it was severely lacking in the performance category. With its top-trim 4.2-liter V8, the 1980 Ford Mustang made a paltry 118 horsepower out of its V8. These performance numbers were appalling. There was no hiding it. Emissions requirements were choking out these V8s of all of their grunt, and Ford knew they had to think outside of the box to create a car that would get true enthusiasts excited. And the way that they would have to go about doing it was radically different than what they had ever done before in a high-performance Mustang. This time around, the top dog Mustang would, oddly enough, pack a turbocharged 4-cylinder. And it wasn't just Ford who helped build it. McLaren also had a hand in the development of this car. This is the story of the incredibly rare 1980 McLaren Mustang M81. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Rare Cars. This is the channel where we dive into the past and explore some of the rarest and most iconic vehicles of all time. If you want to see more short-form documentaries on unique cars like the McLaren M81 or other cars like the AC428s, then make sure that you are subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel as we release new documentaries like these every single week. But now, let's get into the history of the absolutely insane wide-body turbocharged Mustang that you have probably never even heard about, the 1980 McLaren Mustang M81. Now, the only true reason that the McLaren M81 Mustang exists at all is as a direct response to the 1979 oil crisis and the new emissions regulations at the time. If these factors were not at play, then the pinnacle of Mustang performance would have still been a V8. But because fuel economy was such a concern in the early 80s, Ford actually neutered their 302 cubic inch V8s down to just 255 cubic inches to try and maximize their fuel economy. And as a result, they slashed the power output. Because of the extremely lackluster performance that the V8 offered in the early Foxbody Mustangs, Ford wanted to develop a car to bring awareness to their new 2.3-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine option as a new and exciting way to experience Mustang performance. But Ford knew that pushing this new turbocharged 4-cylinder variant would be in direct opposition to what much of the American fan base wanted, who demanded V8 performance. So the typical avenue of bringing this car to, let's say, the NASCAR circuit or something of that nature wouldn't be effective. Ford took the approach of going more European with the way that they would sell and market this special 4-cylinder Mustang. They took the stance of a more handling-focused car for the M81 Mustang, as the 4-cylinder Mustangs had better weight distribution and handling characteristics than their V8 counterparts did. And to drum up hype for a relatively experimental car like this, they would have to have serious motorsport backing behind it to at least convince people that these radically new turbocharged 4-cylinders were actually good performers. And to do so, Ford would develop a partnership with McLaren. Yes, the same McLaren as the supercar manufacturer today. Only 40 years ago, their company was focused exclusively on building race cars and helping with special engineering projects for other automotive brands. This partnership not only brought the weight of the McLaren name to this new Mustang, but it also brought their team of talented engineers who went through the Foxbody to create the ultimate Mustang of 1980, the McLaren M81. The M81 utilized a hand-built McLaren blueprinted version of the stock 2.3-liter Ford Turbo 4. McLaren tore these engines apart and rebuilt them with custom-ported heads and a ton of magic when it came to the tuning side to get these engines running to McLaren's standards. The real X factor for these M81s was the manual boost controller that McLaren installed. See, the standard 2.3-liter 4-cylinder engine's turbocharger only ran at about 5 pounds of boost, so it was very limited on the amount of extra air that it was feeding the engine. McLaren, with their new ported heads and the engine work that they did, knew they could squeeze more power out of this engine by simply turning up the boost. The M81 cars would run at up to 11 pounds of boost on the same 2.3-liter engine, which meant considerably more power. The stock 2.3-liter four-cylinder made 132 horsepower. The M81, with McLaren's upgrades, would make about 175 horsepower, which was over a 30% increase in power output. And for everyone saying that is not a lot, well, yes, you would be correct. But both of these four-cylinder engines still made more power than the V8 versions did in the early 80s. All of the M81 cars would feature a 4 or 5-speed manual transmission. On the exterior, there is no mistaking the McLaren M81 Mustang. It is probably the most insane-looking Mustang ever made. The M81 featured a full custom wide-body design that added new front and rear fenders that were a full 2 or 3 inches wider than stock on each side. These new wider fenders also helped accommodate the fully functional front and rear brake ducts that were installed on all M81s to help with brake cooling. The M81s also got a brand new and revised front bumper that featured a upper primary grille delete and expanded the actual grille intake space at the lower part of the front bumper. Coupled with the brand new vented hood with its giant bulge and its Super 80s BBS wheels, the M81 had a truly unmistakable look to it. The M81s also came equipped with Recaro bucket seats, new Stewart Warner gauges, and even a more performance-oriented steering wheel. But this race car look would be nothing without actual handling upgrades to back it up. The M81 Mustang featured upgraded, fully adjustable Coney shocks and struts, as well as different spring rates. The M81s also received upgraded sway bars and slightly better brakes from the V8 Mustang. Overall performance specs on the M81 Mustang resulted in a 0 to 60 time of just over 9.7 seconds and a quarter-mile time of 17.37 seconds at 79 miles per hour. For reference, a stock turbo four-cylinder Mustang in 1980 would do 0 to 60 in 10.8 seconds and finish the quarter-mile in 18.2 seconds. Allegedly, while testing the M81's performance figures, the car was also not running at its full boost level. So the M81 in reality was definitely quicker than the tested numbers and considerably quicker than the stock 2.3-liter Turbo 4 cars. But given that these M81s were the most powerful factory Mustang offered at the time, you're probably wondering why you haven't ever seen one. And well, that is because there were just 10 of these McLaren M81 Mustangs ever produced. Now, Ford and McLaren were initially planning on building about 250 of these cars over the production run, but the McLaren M81's eye-watering MSRP of $25,000 was the main thing that halted sales. To put this in perspective, a 1981 Corvette had a base MSRP of just $16,500. And even the turbocharged V8-powered Yanko Turbo Z28, which was considerably faster than this Mustang, was just over $17,000. This M81, although it was a super awesome car and super unique in its own right, just had no chance of becoming a commercial success given its ridiculous pricing. But the M81 was not a total failure. The principles and engineering knowledge learned in building the McLaren Mustang M81 would trickle down just a few short years later to the turbocharged SVO four-cylinder Mustang, which sold considerably better. So in reality, the McLaren M81 Mustang had to walk in order for the more iconic SVO Mustang to run. And that is the abridged history of the 1980 Ford M81 McLaren Mustang. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like and also share this video with other enthusiasts. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel and smash the notification bell for more documentary-style videos just like this on the world's most interesting cars. Until next time, enthusiasts.